Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Today we'll be taking a look at the second San Martin out of the three that I unboxed not too long ago. In case you've missed that video, I'll put a link in the corner of the screen if you guys want to check that out. This is the vintage Tudor Submariner Homage, or the reference number SN006-G2. This particular one is an interesting one because, as I was saying in my 62 miles chrono review, I feel that at this stage there's only a matter of time until the Homage catalog runs out of popular designs, and that people would actually, well, they might actually lose interest. I've said it before that even though every time I get a Homage in, even though I love them so much, there'll always be a small piece of me that is not fully convinced. That is because of that borrowed design. I unboxed this and I wore it with that idea in mind, and the more I wore it, the more that idea of the borrowed design went away and settled into the collection quite nicely. Also, I have another Submariner Homage in the collection, the Steinhardt, and for some reason at the moment this is getting a lot more wrist time. I just can't explain it why. Full disclosure guys, this watch has been sent in to me by the Aliexpress platform for the purpose of this review. I don't have to return it, I get to keep it, so bear that in mind as the video goes along. I'll put links down below to the watch and the Aliexpress store, and also put a discount code that will get you $20 off with every $200 spent, WWG. Also, if you like to see more content like this, feel free to click a like and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any future videos. With that being said, enough waffle, let's jump into the review. Even though this and the Steinhardt are very similar watches, I do think they have a different presence on the wrist. This video was not necessarily a comparison between the two, but what I'm trying to get is that you might prefer this one over the typical Submariner looking Homage for various reasons. They just give out different vibes. Let's go through some dimensions. The case diameter is 39.5. We have a thickness of 13.1. The lug to lug is 48.5 millimeters, and this also has a female end links, and it actually wears exactly as the size suggests. We have a lug width of 20 millimeters with drilled lugs, which we'll talk about later, and a weight of 136 grams, sized up to my 6.3 inch wrist. I want to talk a little bit more than usual about the way this wears, because I feel that it plays a huge role into the decision-making process of whether you should buy this or not. First of all, those female end links really allow the watch to conform to the curvature of the wrist quite nicely, especially if you have small wrists. I find that this was one of the biggest issues most Submariner Homages had. The watch never looked particularly huge on the wrist, but it still felt like something was off. Another thing is that even if this is quite thin because of that movement, the screw down case back sticks out a bit and the lugs are almost straight. So again, the female end links and the short lug to lug save the day. All things considered, I love the way this wears, and I think that this is how all subby Homages should look and wear at the same time. Let's have a look at the case. The material used is 316L stainless steel, and I feel that it's pretty obvious by now that San Martin won't use any inferior materials in their watches. We have a high quality polishing on the side with chamfered edges and brushing on top of the lugs. Look, for a watch costing around $400, you'd expect that kind of finishing, and even though I feel that I am repeating myself, they never disappoint. At the 3 o'clock, you have these relatively small crown guards that protect the screw down crown that is signed with the S logo. Between the sign, crown, and the screw down case back, we have a stated water resistance of 200 meters. While we're here, I want to point out the smaller crown guards do give it a sleeker, more vintage inspired look, since this is a Homage mentioning the Tudor Sub, which I think was discontinued in 1983, according to the internet. Another thing to mention is again that this watch also suffers from the same identity crisis with that S logo used. The thing is that I would have no problem if they use that S logo anywhere else, but they don't. They just have a bunch of crowns, like we said it before, and they also have other watches with the hexagon logo on the crowns. I mean, I just don't get it. Anyway, moving swiftly along. The bezel is 120 clicks unidirectional with a black ceramic insert with a lume pip at the 12 o'clock. Markings are all in white and they're quite deeply engraved in the insert. It aligns perfectly, it's easy to turn, no backplay, and the grip to resistance ratio is almost perfect. I'm pretty confident you won't find this in a different position after daily use. The only thing I would like to point out here is that the markings are a bit thin. This is not necessarily a complaint, it all depends on the preferences. Also, I think this falls within the vintage design vibes that they're trying to portray here. Moving on to the dial. This is covered by a top hat piece of sapphire crystal with air coating. Again, not sure how many layers. Saint Martin never mentioned these things or if it's under or over the glass. The legibility in direct sunlight is overall decent. You can tell there is some air coating there. Also, the white on black indices help with that. One thing I will say is that I love the way this looks and that the style of crystal chosen was the best option here because it falls within the same lines of the vintage inspired diver, and it makes the dial look relatively smaller, which some people might not, but I personally do like. It gives the impression that the watch is smaller than the dimensions would actually suggest. The Saint Martin Aliexpress official store offers this only in matte black with the applied hexagon logo or with a sterile dial. Links down below as usual. I personally like the hexagon logo since it gives the watch a bit more character, but I believe it's just a matter of preference, I guess. The indices are very well printed, very well executed, same as the writing at the 6, which is also in white. And once again, minimum branding, which I am personally a fan of. And if you look at it this way, the dial is relatively small, so too much would actually clutter it. And last but not least here, we have the iconic snowflake hands with the Saint Martin pinion cap. A few things to cover here before moving on. From experience, people have very polarizing opinions about the snowflake hands. You either love them or you hate them. I personally have nothing against them. I think considering the fact that I don't see myself spending a few grand on a Tudor with snowflake hands, this will be the closest I would get to one. Until then, this will do just fine. The lume on this, according to Saint Martin, is a BGW9 and it glows with that blue kind of minty-ish color, and considering the fact that the indices are all printed, the glow here is actually very good. I mean, this is not by any means outstanding, but for reference, I think this is better than my Steinhardt Ocean 39, which, by the way, I intend to put against this at some stage. So no complaints here. So far, Saint Martin, I would say, is leading the lume pack on the AliExpress watches, if there even is such a thing. The movement powering this is the PT5000, which is a Chinese clone of the ETA 2824-2. Saint Martin offer this with a choice of two movements, the PT or the Sellita SW2000, which is also considering a clone of the ETA. The PT is a relatively new movement since it was introduced in 2015. And because it's Chinese clone, people don't seem to trust it as much as the other ones in terms of reliability. This is still a high beat movement with 28,800 BPH, and you still get that smooth sweep. And I would say that when you wind it, the only issue is that you don't have the refined turns as you would have from the likes of Sellita, which I think applies to all PT5000 and not just this one. Another thing to mention here is that we also have a ghost position since the watch doesn't have a date window. Personally, I'm not too bothered about these things since I can although I can see the logic behind it, this fits in the same case as the Sellita, so to my knowledge, it just wouldn't make sense for them to offer this with an NH35 that has a date function. The downside to all of this is that if you do decide to go for the Sellita, there is a difference of $140 between the two, which is the cost of the movement, which I perfectly understand, but this is an opportunity for me to mention my discount in case you do decide to go for that. Again, for the $20 off with every $200 spent. Again, links down below, and again, I'll put the code down below, WWG, in case you want to use that. As a final conclusion here on the movement, I would say that I have gained a bit more confidence in the PT, especially when mine is running at -2 seconds per day. But I still think the slow creep up in prices puts this in the more expensive part of the price bracket. I left the bracelet for last as usual because there is not much to cover here. This is the same one as they use in a lot of their Submariner homages, and this is incredibly well engineered and very well finished, and it fits into the case very well, and it fits the whole theme of the watch very well. One thing I would like to say here is that just like the vintage one, we also have 20mm drilled lugs, and in case you want to put this on a different strap, I honestly don't see why, but in theory it should be very easy to do. I haven't tried it, but I have no doubt that you wouldn't have any issues, and it should be a pretty straightforward operation. Final conclusions here, guys. Like I was saying, this is the watch I was not expecting to like as much from the 3 that has arrived. One of the main reasons being that I have my Steinhardt, which is similar in style, and I love that watch, but dare I say, this is better in a few ways than that. The bracelet is better, the lume is better, and this is beyond comfy, and it feels that this is a very premium product. The price for both movements, I feel that is a bit high, and people might be harder to convince. The $1,000,000 question is, what would you take, the Steinhardt or the Saint Martin for the price? Let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, that was my review. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed my review for the Saint Martin SN006-G2. Thank you very much for watching. Click a like, subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.